Much has happened since the death of Chiara Lubich on March 14, 2008. The economic and cultural crisis, emerging countries, globalization. Before stepping down as Pope, Benedict XVI spoke of how we can touch with our hands what the Church is. Not an organization, an association for religious or humanitarian ends, but, he said, a living body, a communion of brothers and sisters. And the newly elected Pope Francis echoes him. The Church is a single great structure, he says. We are in the family. We are among brothers and sisters. This is the family that Chiara Lubich spoke of in her final words to us. Always be a family. She envisioned a privileged role for this institution. As in the family, so in society. The questions of our times require fitting answers. Answers that can come only from those who have borne witness, from prophets who know how to read the signs of the times and how to change the course of history. One of these was, for certain, Chiara Lubich. Let's look back through the album of her life and the life of her family. Her passage through this brief century followed a wide-ranging human and spiritual itinerary. Her own natural family offered a glimpse of the society in which she would live and help change. Luigi, her father, was a socialist. Luigia, her mother, was an ardent member of the Church. The family, which had Central European origins, resided in Trent, a city that bridges the north and the south. Her older brother, Gino, a communist, fought against the fascists during the war. The characteristics of this family were affection, responsibility, and dialogue. They were poor, sometimes even destitute. Their anti-fascist sentiments tested their faith, but it remained strong, even under trials, such as Gino's imprisonment and Silvia's moving away.
One day, one indescribable day, I saw a light. It appeared to me as more beautiful than all other beautiful things, and I followed it. I realized it was the truth.
Yes, at the height of the war, the young girl from Trent left her family. Following that light, she embarked on a human, spiritual, and cultural adventure, one that she could never have imagined. She was baptized Silvia, but took the name Chiara in recognition of the first companion of St. Francis, someone who also desired God alone. But she was not alone in her journey. Quite the contrary. There were others like her, young people, adults, families, priests and friars. The poor and those not so poor, idealists and workers immediately joined her. And then later on, Protestants and Orthodox, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists and Hindus, people who doubted the existence of God, revolutionaries and conservatives. In contact with Chiara, each of them felt that they had an active role to play in the situations where they found themselves. The truth that Chiara was following came to be called the ideal. This adventure began on a particular date, December 7th, 1943, the day when she pronounced her yes to God. She soon shared this ideal with her first companions, who, with her, went to live in a little apartment in Trent, at Piazza Cappuccini.
Ecco, quello che io adesso vorrei dire è quello che è avvenuto da quel momento.
Something new had begun. What is this something new that was coming to life?
È stata una vita nuova. Cos'è questo nuovo che è nato?
It's that where there is charity and love, God is
Dove
there.
c'è la carità e l'amore, lì è Dio.
It has to be like this. And since we put all our efforts into always maintaining charity and love among us, always starting again, and I can't tell you how hard it was, how much we had to die to our old self, it was God in our midst.
Era Dio in mezzo a noi.
And so this adventure of hers came to be called Focolare, the fire that shines forth in the midst of the family. Chiara had a great passion in her life, studying. But the war prevented her from attending university. Then she decided to put her books in the attic in order to follow God, and she found an extraordinary teacher she never expected. The one who had inspired the book of all books, the Gospel, whose pages that handful of young people read each day and strove to put into practice.
Gesù ci fece capire chiaramente.
Jesus made us clearly understand that it was absurd to look for the truth when the truth was completely contained in him, the Word, the truth personified.
Fatta persona.
Jesus was the teacher who made her a teacher to millions of people. She received the UNESCO Prize for Peace Education in 1996, especially to young people and to little children. She was such a great teacher that she was eventually awarded 15 honorary doctorates. This ideal that Silvia Chiara had received was a charism, a particular gift. This charism made her realize that her vision extended far beyond the city of Trent. After a few years, she left for Rome and then began sending her companions throughout Italy, Europe, and the world. As far back as 1944, Chiara had discovered the secret, the cornerstone that would sustain her in her desire for truth and her dream of universal unity. She wanted to share what she felt in her heart, not only with a few friends, but with everyone.
There is a moment in the life of Jesus that bears within it the answers to all our questions. It's the moment of that great, great why, which before dying Jesus addressed to God in his mysterious cry, my God, why have you forsaken me?"
In 1949, having met the person she would later describe as co-founder, Igino Giordani, Member of Parliament, journalist, scholar, up in the Dolomite Mountains, she lived out a strong mystical experience, a period that she herself defined as paradise. In it, the dimension of existence merged with the dimension of thought, on earth as it is in heaven. Everything that she experienced during the 1940s foreshadowed what would later come to life. As a seed contains in its essence what is to germinate, plant, flower, fruit, so too the events of those first years foretold what would unfold in the years ahead. For example, during those war years, Chiara and her companions tried to solve the problem of poverty in Trent. In 1991, the Economy of Communion project began, an undertaking to find solutions to the problem of poverty in Brazil and then beyond, and to work for an economy that does not alienate human beings, but fulfills them.
Abbiamo capito, è lo Spirito Santo che ci porta per mano.
We have understood, and it's the Holy Spirit leading us by the hand, that industries and businesses should be established here. As I said, the profits will be put in common. And this is the point, that the profits are put in common. Capital, capital, yes, yes, capital, capital. We will have capital too. It's the profit that should be put in common.
First at home, then in the city of Trent, in Parliament, and generally speaking, through the thousands of meetings throughout her lifetime, a deeply rooted need for dialogue matured in Chiara. It was a dialogue seen not as an instrument to be used to obtain certain results, but rather as the very way for the world to be, because it contains in itself the life of God, the life of God Trinity, its relationship, infinite dialogue, and total reciprocity. It's not by chance that the commandment Jesus called new is the one of mutual love.
Io ho un sogno.
I have a dream. It's that of seeing gradually, or as soon as possible, universal fraternity fulfilled.
Throughout her entire life, she engaged in dialogue with Catholics and ecclesial movements, with Christians from hundreds of churches, with the faithful of other religions, with those who do not believe, with adults and children, whether near or far. Chiara was dialogue. For Chiara, to be church meant communion, sharing, openness. She never abandoned this certainty, not even in the 1950s, when the Vatican carefully examined the new Focolare movement, even almost dissolving it. She spoke of church as communion, when few yet did, and anticipated several of the main themes of Vatican II. She forged rich and creative relationships with the popes in Rome, but also with ecumenical patriarch Athenagoras, and later Bartholomew, and with several archbishops of Canterbury and other leaders of the Protestant churches. In 1966, in Fontem, Cameroon, she began an adventure together with an indigenous tribe facing serious health difficulties. This is how she started the rich chapter of dialogue with faithful of other religions and cultures. She entered mosques and synagogues, Hindu temples and Buddhist monasteries, met men and women of every nation in universities and factories, in palaces and slums. In the tumultuous period just after the war, she worked hard so that the city would not be enveloped by revenge and spite. Everywhere she spoke of fraternity. She loved her city, but above all, she loved being its citizen. She certainly did not imagine that many cities would confer upon her their honorary citizenships. In 1996, she founded the Movement for Unity in Politics.
A further expression of fraternity in politics is to love the country of others as we love our own. In fact, humanity's greatest dignity would be not to see themselves as people who are in frequent conflict with one another, but rather, through mutual love, see themselves as single people enriched by one another's diversity and therefore guardians of the unity of different identities.
Her thought, said to be a spiritual doctrine, is not some kind of theoretical elaboration. Rather, it's the fruit of a light that became life, and then, in turn, once more enriched human thought. It's a doctrine that, beginning in 1991, has been studied by the Abba School. It offers valuable guidance to the various disciplines through its centers of learning and dozens of publishing houses throughout the world. One of the last documents that Chiara signed established the Sofia University Institute. She was already ill. It was just 1 month before her death.
When I come to your door and you ask who I am, I will not say my name. I will say simply, thank you for everything and for always. This is my name.
Chiara did not die alone. She died surrounded by her own people, by her larger family, by those who in the last hours of her life passed by her bedside, a long line of hundreds of people, children and adults, professors, the gas station attendant, the mayor, a Muslim woman. A fulfilled death, at the height of a life that prefigured a holiness of the people, becoming saints together. A death lived in communion, the symbol of an existence spent for an ideal of unity, for a charism that has entered contemporary culture and history and continues to bring its contribution to society, to the church, and to humanity.